at some point in your life, you're going to want to have some very specific fishies. In that case, you're going to want to go to the subject-specific databases. So going to the subject-specific databases is like going upriver, and instead of fishing with a net, you're fishing with a rod and reel and a lure that's known to be particularly attractive to the fishies that you're searching for. Now, in order to find those particular fishies, you'll need to go to the databases that's best for your particular area. You can come back to the library homepage and do a searchy search through our databases by looking for a particular subject area. Like, I'm talking about fish, we may as well go marine biology. Ha! And these are the best databases for marine biology. Now, some of them are big guns. So if you go through these guys, they're really big databases that pretty much everybody will find something useful in. But the majority of what you find in Science Direct, Scopus, Web of Science is going to be peer-reviewed scholarly journals, which is like the top level of scholarly sources is peer-reviewed scholarly journals. And within peer-reviewed scholarly journals, there's usually a few different types of articles as well. So you're looking for the research articles. So the research articles in peer-reviewed scholarly sources is like the top level of evidence of what you're looking for. And then below that is things like journals that are aimed at being professional, but not necessarily peer-reviewed. And then you've got books that are aimed at learning new stuff and things like that, blah, blah, blah. But this is one way to find it. Another way to find it is to go to your particular subject guide. So if you go to your guides and you go to your subject area, now inside LearnJCU, when you find your link to your library, it'll take you to the relevant subject guide for your subject. Some of them may be the subject code guides. Some of them may be one of these guides. So you can see, once again, I've got the option to go to, where's our fishies? Here we go. We'll go to our fishies. Find your little fishies. And then you can see that there's the top databases right here on that first page. And then there are other options throughout the guide for, yes, thank you for that. Other options throughout the guide for finding more material that you can use for more subject-specific work. So I would definitely recommend that you spend some time having a look through your subject guide to find some tools that you can play with. Press all the buttons, you won't break anything. And you'll find some interesting resources that you might want to keep subscribing to after you leave our fair shores. Let's go back to our little searchy search. So I've got stuff turnover. We've got 7,000 results. We're going to find other ways to narrow that down shortly. So let's come back to our PowerPoint. Okay, turnover of staff is another option. Fine, let's try that one. We'll just shove this one in at the same time. Okay, so I've got staff turnover or turnover of staff or staff retention. From 7,000 results, what I'm about to go. 10,000. Cool.
Did we just go up?
We did. What do you think made us go up?
We added more options.
We did, and we added it with this magic number right here. So the or gets you either. As long as I've got that all there, it will get me anything in here. I'm just going to wrap this search up in a nice little set of brackets so it stays together. So it's always going to keep this little bit of the staff turnover or turnover of staff or staff retention as one part of my sum. I'm doing computer science. Ah! I'm going to add something else to this shortly, but that gives me more. So the things that you add with an or will broaden your search to catch more fishies. And now we're going to find some other ways to narrow it down, but we'll do that in a second. Healthcare is another term, but is it a completely different term to staff over? So staff turnover and turnover of staff are obviously two different terms for one of my concepts. Healthcare is a term for one of my other concepts, so let's go with that one. Let's search for that. And now I'm down to what?
Fastest drop in history.
1,000 results. What do you reckon did that?
I
If
You
the
did
or made it
lots of
bigger, what
things
made it
just
smaller?
then, but you did lots. You put brackets or parentheses on, and then you added a word and in all capitals, and then another thing.
Yeah. So the and says it has to have both. So the
Mm.
and the and's a tricky one because it's often invisible. I like to type it in so I can see what I'm doing. But if you just typed in two words right next to each other, it would assume you meant and if you didn't have the quotation marks around it. So what that's doing is it's saying I can have any of these because these are my OR searches wrapped up in my little brackets, keeping it all together. So when you've got an OR search, wrap them up in your brackets to keep it together. So here's my little OR search, and it's saying I can have any of these terms, I don't care which one, but I must have at least one of them. And I must have healthcare. So that's what that and is doing. That and is saying I must have both. So I must have this, and because I've got those ORs there, I must have one of these. And that's brought me down to 1,000 results there. So this is why you need to have those two concepts. So this is concept number one. This is concept number two. I could add some ideas to concept number one. I'm just going to wrap that up because now I've got an OR there and I need to wrap up my ORs. So that OR should actually broaden it a little bit. And oh, look, it did. So now gone up from 1,000 to 3,000. I'm going to do something else to wrap it up. And one of you's already picked this up because I saw it in the chats. Okay, I'm just a little bit high. I've only got a couple hundred more, but that's okay. We can cope with that. So I've got some good articles there. I might want to start adding them to my list. Oh, look, I've got a pin. Add that item. Ooh, add that item. I'm mainly in books and though, so I've still got books and
Mm,
articles.
I
I
was
might
just
want to
going
do
to
something about
say,
that later. I'll think
oh,
about
you're
that in a
going to do
minute.
it later. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll wait.
All right. Nah, 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 nah. Yeah, so could be another way. I will come back to that, but I'll just quickly touch on this one. Be strategic with what you look at. You're supposed to identify the major causes of staff turnover in a profession of your choice, not all of them. So as long as you can justify why the ones that you chose were major ones, you can just pick a couple, maybe three, and focus on those. It's better to go deep on a few things than broad on a bunch of things. That's also something to watch for, whether what they've asked for, though. So if they've asked you to look at just one thing, that means they want you to go deep on that one thing. If they've asked you to choose a bunch of things, that means they want you to touch on all of them and they don't care how deep you go. Because you've only got, what, 2,000 words? Ooh, someone's drawing it.
Oh,
You
not
discovered the
even 2,000 words. I would think most of the people starting at university are going to be doing something around 1,000 to 1,500.
Yep.
Mm.
For the first year. By the
Yeah,
time you
it
by the time
works
you get
up.
to third year, you'll probably be up to 3,000 words. So once again, have a look at the major ones. You'll need to justify why you've chosen ones and keep your word limit in mind and how much you need to cover, etc., etc. Now remember the 5th of November. That I think I've already talked about this. I'll talk about it again anyway. That you will have limits to what you're looking at. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. So some of the limits you'll have automatically may be that you are only looking for things from the last 5 years. So let's narrow that down. I'm only looking for things from the last 5 years. And I may only be looking for peer-reviewed journals. So I'm just going to tick that one. And I'm going to apply those filters. And I can clear that line. I just have to find the option. Hang on a minute. Is it that one? Yay! Okay, there we go. Just gonna move control out of the way, then we're good. All right. So having put two filters on, I'm now down to whee. I've still got a pencil. 1,000 results again. So the filters are making it narrower as well. I'm just going to clear that and get rid of my Duva so I can come down here. Now, those filters will go away the minute I add anything else in here. So if I want to keep those two filters, I'm going to lock them in place. So once my filters are locked, then I can add some stuff up here and it will keep those filters together. So I can change things. I can say that's too narrow, I want to get rid of one of my ors, or I can say it's too broad, I want to add something else. I keep doing this thing with the asterisks. What's the asterisks doing, man? Has somebody actually already mentioned it in chat? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
I tried to drop a little hint.
So what that asterisk is doing is it's getting me anything that starts with this. So I'm going to get nursing, nurses, nursed. I'm going to get economy, economies, economics, economical, anything that starts with econom. If I think that's too broad, if I'm getting too much stuff that starts with econom, because I really don't want economies of scale as I'm talking about this, I might want to take that out and add a few more letters because it's everything that starts with this. So maybe adding a few more letters will help. Economics, whatever. Maybe I want to change that completely and just make it an or search. I still want economy though, so I can do that and see what happens. So what I suggest you do is a spaghetti search. Just keep chucking things in there to see what happens. See what sort of results that you get, mix and match, bandy it about. Some of them you're going to love, some of them you're going to hate, some of them will make it too narrow, some of them will make it too broad. Don't limit yourself to just doing one and done for your search. Just throw some stuff in there, see what works, make a note of the stuff that gave you good results. Also, did you notice I keep pinning these things? I'm not logged in at the moment, so when I stop searching, my favorites are going to go away. But if I logged in, those favorites would get saved to my account. And you just log in with your JCU username and password.
There's
And then
actually
the
something
next
else you can do once you've done that, isn't there, Sharon? Can
email them
you
to
maybe
yourself.
email them to
Mm.
yourself?
You can actually do that from here. So you don't need to log in to email them to yourself. You can do that straight from here.
Are
You've
you
got
serious?
options. Yeah, to
I
email.
had
Boom.
thought that went away.
No, it's
Excellent.
still
My
there.
life is complete again.
Okay, so without even logging in, you can just email those results to yourself or to somebody else or to your arms dealer, whatever you want. And then you can log in and then you can save them. And then once you've saved them, one thing that you can't do until you've logged in is you can add tags. So you can go through and have like a group of things that are relevant to this particular assignment because it's got your tags. I might show you what that looks like. Because why not? You're a captive audience. Wahaha.
Sure, I'll have a shot at doing it while Sharon focuses on getting through the MFA. So the asterisk, that little star symbol, is what we call the wild card, or it's
Truncation.
showing, yeah, it's a symbol saying we're truncating or shortening the word to its root or stem. So we want anything that begins with these word letters at the beginning, not words, letters. And we don't care if it's got an ing ending or an ed ending or an ment ending. We want anything within that sort of category of things. Does that make sense?
You can also do a wildcard search. We cover this in a more complex lesson though. So if you had a word like woman or women, so I'm just going to write that down. You may have noticed that those two words have an internal change. If I went with a question mark instead of the letter that changes, where's my question mark? I'm lost. Okay. If I did this instead, it would get me any variation of woman, women, women for people who feel like being extra feminist. So you've got any variation of that option with that question mark that's inside
I'm
the
just
word
not
itself.
sure if we can see you doing that, Sharon,
I did it in the
unless,
chats.
oh,
It's
you
in the
did it in
chats.
the chats.
It's in the
Oh,
chats.
Sam's as confused as me, I think.
Hmm.
It's in the couple of chats above. Excellent. Thank you.
All right. So, um, since I'm here looking at my library account, I may as well show you what you can see. Anything that you've borrowed out is sitting there. You can renew them, but if you've borrowed a work out, it automatically renews until someone else requests it. So when you borrow the book out, as long as nobody else asks for it, you can just keep holding on to it and it will renew and it will renew and it will renew. The minute somebody does request it, though, the due date that it is at the time that they've requested becomes solid and you can't renew it past that time. You'll get an email that says something like change of due date. That's just telling you that the due date's now locked in place and you can't renew it. You'll have to bring it in by that time or you will get fined. And if you do get fined, you can see them here. And you can pay that fine online within here. Up to a certain point in time, it's a bit of a who cares scenario, but then at some point in time, you might want to get your results. And if you owe the university any money, it withholds your results. So you want to pay at some point, unfortunately.
Oopsie days.
Yes. In terms of my favorites, they're all sitting up here on my little pin, and I can go and find my saved searches. You can save your searches. You can save your searches and come back to them later. So that's sitting there. I can go to one of my saved searches. I can have a look at the last search that I did while I was logged in. It will remember some of my search history. And I can go and take a look at the things that I have saved and given a tag to. So I just need to pick it and then add a tag. The options are up there. If I do beep, neat. Nope, that's not what I want. Get away. Close. Neat. And then I can add a tag or add a new tag, and then I can go and look at all the things that I've set aside for this particular assignment. So these are all tools that are available to you inside OneSearch. Now, if I go into my search history, let's go back to where I was. Boo! Ah! Magic. Absolute magic. And look, it still remembered my filters because I locked them in place. I'm so glad I did that. Other things that you can do. Oh, I'm down to 100 anyway. So maybe I just want to look at those 100 before I do anything else. Thoroughly recommend that at each stage before you narrow it down even further, you have a bit of a quick look at what's on that page. You can set it to be like 50 at a time. So you can see all those results. And just see if there's any that you want to quickly add to your marked list before you keep changing it and keep narrowing it down, because you never know when something that looks really, really good and might give you some extra stuff to do for research is going to fall off the face of the earth because you added one extra filter and it didn't match that particular criteria. There are other filters, obviously. So if you come down the side here, if you're working solely online or you're on holidays in the Bahamas while you're doing your assignment and you can only do material that's completely online, you can click that button. If you're the kind of person who really loves being able to walk into the library and grab a book, you can come down to, and it won't happen because I'm looking at peer-reviewed journal articles. Let's get rid of that one. You can come down to Okay, it's all online. If the option isn't there, it takes it away. And the option might not be there because a hell of a lot of our stuff is online. Yeah, it's not. You'd see something in here that says collection, and you'd be able to say, look, I'm going to walk into Townsville. I want to see what the Townsville options are. And you'd be able to pick Townsville, and it would just tell you where on the shelf you can get books about that particular topic, and you can go look at it there. Okay, so have a look at the filters, see what's available, see what you can add. The main ones that you'll be using is the peer-reviewed. You'll probably use that a hell of a lot of times. You may also want to narrow the content type down to a particular thing, like say book chapters. You may want to narrow your subject down to a certain area. If you're getting too many things, you might want to take a look in there. Oh, I've got 143 that are specifically about employee turnover. That sounds cool. They're specifically about employee turnover. They may be less about the nursing side of things. So keep that in mind as well. Obviously, the date is another big one that you're going to be using to filter. So those are probably the major ones that you'll be using to filter, the date and the content type, and whether or not you want to narrow to peer-reviewed journals and online only. After you graduate from JCU and you no longer have access to all of the things that we pay for, you can still use this tool to find all the free stuff that we connect to by clicking on that open access option, because a lot of things are available for free, and you can have a look at that as well. Where am I up to in the grand scheme of things? What even is the time? Okay, blah, blah, blah.
I did mention that we could run a little bit late, but that may have been as I dropped out. So if we
Okay.
run a little bit over, anyone who needs to leave quickly, do know that we're recording the session so you can
Mm.
watch the last bit if you miss it.
And somewhere in the depths of her emails, Lisa does have a copy of these slides because they're the same ones that I used last trimester. So she will be able to
Fabulous.
send them to you if you so desire.
Excellent.
Okay, blah, blah, blah. Talked about that. Something yeah. Yeah, so I think I've sort of basically already mentioned that you want to try and get some background info and then go closer and closer and closer and see what you get. Sometimes sometimes the bluntest tool is actually the best one, because you'll find stuff in Google that you won't find anywhere else. And you'll find stuff in Bing that you won't find in Google. Weird. But that's just the way the algorithm works. Keep in mind that tools like Google and Bing are actually using an algorithm to try and sort the results for you. And a big part of the algorithm that they're using is who are you? What have you looked up in the past? Where are you standing? So if you're using one of the university computers to do a search for something in Google, you'll get different results to if you use it on your home computer. If you sign into Gmail, you'll get different results, because it's now saying, oh, I know this person. I know what they like to look at. And it's catering to the profile that it's created for you in the algorithm to try and give you things that you'll actually like. Something to remember with Google, I'll just park this in your brain. Does anyone know what Google's primary job is? What it actually is? Yes, it's an advertising company. Google's primary job is an advertising space. So that's where it makes its money. It makes its money from selling advertising space. So basically, you got to keep in mind that that's what Google is. So it's going to prioritize anything that it gets a commercial kick out of in the search results that it gives you. There are ways to control it to get better results out of it than that, but I would definitely advise that you look into ways to push Google around, because you can. You can push Google around, you can get better results, but do keep in mind that changing up your words, changing up your spelling, changing how you do stuff will get you different results. So keep trying new stuff, keep throwing things in. With the AI being automatically built in to Google, if you throw in a question, it will try to answer you. When it comes to AI, it's a great tool, but it has its limitations. It's getting better, but it has its limitations. One of the big limitations that AI has is its people pleaser. So it's going to try and give you what you've asked for, even if it doesn't have it. That's a big issue with doing research using the AI inbuilt tools in Google and in Bing. So it will, and it has a tendency to forget what it's doing after about 10 goes. It's bizarre. It has a short-term memory problem. It's lazy. And that's that the hallucination is that it's trying to give you what you asked for, but it doesn't quite have it. So it gives you something that it made up all by its little lonesome self that fits the pattern of other things that you liked. So make sure that you check its sources. So whenever you use the AI tool and it says, this is something that happens, here's a source for it, actually follow the source to make sure that that source said what it tells you it said. Don't trust it. Don't use the AI summary for anything. So use the AI summary to find the resource. Sure, no worries. Go for it. But then go to the source and look at the source before you actually base anything off of that as your evidence. So make sure you always follow your information home to find the most reliable version of it. Having said that, though, chuck some stuff in and see what it says. Use like I said, the tools are getting better all the time. And the more people use them and the more people give them feedback that this was what they're looking for, this isn't what they're looking for, the better the tool gets. So Give it 5 years or so, everybody will be using it all the time. And yeah, you will need to have a little bit of background information about whether or not the stuff that it's telling you is actually worth telling you, which is why I do thoroughly suggest that you always follow the results it gives you back to the original source and make sure the original source is actually telling you what it needs to tell you. Okay, blah, blah, blah. What have we got now? All right, so we've already gone to one search. I did this along the way. So here's an example of some searches that we've done, blah, blah, blah. Oh, the advanced search tool. Let's have a look at the advanced search tool. Everyone loves an advanced search tool. Where the heck are we? You. Most tools will have this, whether you're using, so the things that I've shown you here, you'll be able to use this on most of the databases. So you'll be able to use this on ProQuest, you'll be able to use this on Web of Science, you'll be able to use this on Scopus, you'll be able to use some of this on Google. Almost all of them will have an advanced search option. And if you go into the advanced search option, it may give you a little bit more control over things. So I can do a bit of a mixy-matchy thing. So if I didn't want to do all these little brackets and whatnot, I could chuck everything that means the same thing into one. Whee! Whoopsie doopsie. And I might decide that I actually want to look at something where the subject contains economics and have a bit more control over where it's looking for these particular search terms. So any field contains these ones, that's fine, but I want the subject to definitely be talking about economics, or I want the subject to definitely be talking about nursing, or maybe I want to look for material written by a particular author. I could put them in one of the fields. I could do an author field where I'm looking specifically for, let's say, the author is somebody I know has written a lot of things in this area. I wouldn't just randomly put in Smith if I was a smart person, but I'm doing that now because I'm not a smart person. But these things can make a huge difference. Now I'm only going to get articles where one of the author's surnames is Smith. I am very fond of Smiths, just in case that information becomes relevant for my assignment. Meh, who knows? Okay, so these are all different things that you can do with the options that you have available. Like I said, press all the buttons. See what works for you. Don't be afraid. You can't break anything. Or you know, if your search goes really weird, just start again. Okay, don't forget to answer the whole question. You may have to break it up. You may have to break into pieces. I may decide that putting all of these search terms together is getting me too weird a set of results. So instead, I'm going to look for just staff turnover in nursing and see if I can find what's going on with staff turnover in nursing situation. And then I'm going to look for the economic impact of staff turnover. So I've got economic impact on staff turnover. So I'm looking at those two concepts. And then I'm going to use my brain to stitch together those two ideas. So if this is the staff turnover situation in nursing, and this is the economic impact of staff turnover, then this must surely have an impact on nursing because of the staff turnover problem. Me? Yay! Make sure you watch out for core numbers and little things like or. That's big. So if it asks you to look for one of the following industries and gave you 4 industries, you're not looking at all 4, you're just looking at one. If it says analyze the social, economic, political, or ethical impacts of poor staff retention in this field, you're not looking at all of them, you're just looking for one. So make sure you get that scope. Make sure you look for those limits. And also, impact? That's garbage. Impact is a terrible word all by its little lonesome self. You don't want to use impact without something else. So stitch it together with economic impact, and see what else is in there as well. There are other terms that on their own, they're pretty rubbish. You're going to need to put them in context with other things as well before you're going to get any good results out of them. As you go through the results, make sure you're constantly checking to see if they're worth getting. Pause after each search session to have a bit of a read at what you're getting. So if I went back to these results that I've got for this particular session, I'd have a bit of a search through some of them. I'd have a quick flick through if I go and click on some. I can have a look at the abstract, and the abstract will tell me what that article's about. If the abstract is a bit rubbish, then there's no point in reading the rest of the article. If the abstract is promising, then I might want to take a look at the rest of the article. And if I look at the rest of the article, I'm going to read smarter, not harder. This is another thing that's on the slide. I'll gloss over it when I get there. Right now, I'm just waiting for technology to catch up with me. Whee! Okay, so I'm going to have a look around. So this is from Culp Medical Psychology. So that's a proper peer-reviewed journal. That's great. It's an original paper. So this is a proper research article. That's great. Other ways I can tell it's a proper research article is it's got a bunch of authors who have their jobs next to their name. If I actually go down and look at who they are, I can see that they work for the School of Social Work, etc., etc. So I know that these people are professionals in their field. They've got a reason to talk about what they're talking about. If I keep scrolling down, it's a pretty long article, which is a good sign. It's got references all the way through it, which is a great sign. It's got a lot of references, which is fabbo. If I actually took a look at the quality of the language, it's clearly been written for professionals in the field or people who are researching rather than the average person on the street. As previously mentioned, if it's fun to read, it's probably useless. If it makes you want to gouge your eye out with a spoon, you're on the right track. And if I kept
Or
scrolling,
if you enjoy reading about the thing you're studying, perhaps you're studying the perfect thing.
perhaps. Now, if I go down to the reference list, it's massive. I like that. There may also be other things throughout the article that are particularly appealing to me, like if it's got a lot of graphs in. I always like an article with a lot of graphs because that's a really good indication that's a proper scholarly source. Anywho, I've read the abstract. I like the abstract. I'm looking at the keywords. I like the keywords. If I take a look at the introduction, and I like the introduction, also, I like the references that they're talking about in the introduction. They may also have a literature review section. Guess what I can do with those references? I can steal them. I can
This is
steal
an
their
excellent
ideas
hint.
and go find other articles based on the one that I found here. Once again, I want to take a look closely at the age of those articles and whether that fits in with my dream range. But if Smith, Coletta, and Bender look like a good article, I'm still going to go find it. It'll give me some more ideas. Um, After I've read the introduction, if I'm still interested, I'm going to skip the middle of it and I'm going to go down to the conclusion. Whee! Oh my, that's a lot of stuff. If I had to read all of the articles I found in their entirety, I would probably never do anything else except read journal articles, and I would probably be very sad. Very, very, very sad. So I'm not going to read the whole article. I can't remember the last time I read a whole journal article, which makes me feel sad for the person who wrote it, but that's beside the point. Hey, there's a lot of stuff in here. Oh, conclusions and implications. Right, I'm going to read this bit now. Half the time, most of what I want to know, if it's mentioned in the introduction and the conclusion, then I know to just skim through the rest of the article to find the bit where they mentioned that. And then I can actually use that part of the article to talk about everything else. Because I've read the introduction and I've read the conclusion or the discussion. The discussion's a good one as well. I've got the idea of what they're talking about, what conclusions they've drawn, where it fits into the grade. I've got the big picture. So now I can just skim through the rest of the article to find that paragraph where they were talking about the bit that's particularly interesting and relevant to me. And I've already got an idea of the context in which they're talking about it from the introduction and conclusion, so I can just read that particular paragraph and just skim the rest of the article rather than read it properly and see if anything else jumps out at me or anything else looks interesting. I do recommend reading the introduction with a critical eye, though, and the conclusion for that matter. If it talks about its methodologies and things like that, does it sound like they did a good job? Did it sound like what they did made sense? If it doesn't sound like what they did made a hell of a lot of sense to you or did a particularly good job, read the rest of the article with a critical eye. Does it make sense that they reached that conclusion based on what it was that they were looking at in the first place? Because there's a hell of a lot of information out there. Even the stuff that's the top of the top of the top may be a bit weird and maybe not particularly suitable to what it is that you're looking at And everything that you read, you have to read with that critical thinking hat on of, is this a good source of information? Is it a suitable source of information? Is it a sensible source of information? Did they do a good job in talking about what they're talking about? Did they do a good job in designing this study? If I like it, if I've got bits that I want to use, if I think this is great, I'm definitely going to use this particular paper in my assignment, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to where I got that from. Hang on a second. I'm lost. And I'm going to do a little cheaty thing. I'm going to grab the details for it. Citation, bing. Copy that to a clipboard. Come down to my Word document where I've got a list of all the resources that I'm finding. Paste that in. This was a good article about blah blah blah. Good sentence that I want to come back to might be, oh, where am I? Still lost. Okay, I might like this particular sentence right here. Those skilled individuals seeking the best opportunities, blah, blah, blah. I actually have no idea what that is. I'm going to pretend I read it and that it's good and that I want to keep it there. So I've got that particular quote. And that was on page 28. So I'm going to make sure I keep that. And now when I come back to actually writing my assignment and I want to think about all the information that I found, here on my lovely little document, I've got a list of all the resources that I thought were pretty neat and what they said that I thought was pretty neat. So I've got a really great way to go through and just piece together my assignment based on the research that I found without having to think to myself, oh crap, who was it that said employee satisfaction is improved with cake? I've already made a note of who said employee satisfaction is improved with cake. How great is this? Okay, now, one of you, or more of you, may have noticed that I just stole a suggested citation from the tool that I was using. Did you notice that? Did you notice I stole a suggested citation from the tool that I was using?
Yes, we've just had a little chat about it,
Yeah.
actually.
I'm going to talk about this a little bit more further down the track, but two things. One, always nick it because it's really convenient for this particular part of the research process. But two, don't trust it. Never trust the machines. You're going to want to actually look at that with a critical eye. What did I say the word critical again? Am I suggesting that you have to engage your brain? Darn. But yeah, you have to engage your brain in the research process and you have to engage your brain with every tool that you're using. So AI is going to make your life easier. These sorts of suggested citations are going to make your life easier, but you can't trust the machines. You always have to look at the quality of the work that they've done and make sure that it's actually fit for purpose. Let's see where I'm up to on my little slidey slides because I'm all over the shop and I don't care. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's an iterative process. You're going to do your little research. You're going to get some great words. You're going to get some ideas. You're going to research again. So do schedule several days for researching your assignment. So schedule time where you're going to research your assignment and find your initial results. Give yourself a bit of time to actually look through those results and read them. Make sure you've got more time set aside to do research again, because after you've read your results, you can have more ideas and you want to do some more research. And you're going to love the rinse and repeat at least a couple of times, maybe even 3 or 4 as you go through. And sometimes as you're doing your research, and this has happened to me on more than one occasion, as you're doing your research for one assignment, you actually find something that's really cool for a different assignment. Make sure you tuck that aside as well so that you've got, you don't have to forget where that's from. Be kind to your future self. Your future self is desperate for you to leave them notes. So leave little love notes for your future self, and you will love your past self when you become your future self. Okay, dum. So this is what I've been talking about. Find ways to manage your results. Find ways to keep track of them. So save your searches. Say in one search, where am I? Have a little notey note where you've got the things that are worth looking at after you've read them. Check out the resources that the Learning Center has for note-taking, particularly something called the Cornell method. They've got some templates, word templates that you can just fill in. Brilliant. They give you, they really help you break down the article into some of the core concepts that they said, where it's relevant compared to other things that you've read. And they've got little spaces there that you can fill in. So that is absolutely fabulous. I'm just going to put that little word Cornell method. Okay, so every time, the best way to keep track of your referencing is to do it along the way. Seriously, do it as you go. This is the best way to do it. This will make your future self very happy. Every time you read something, put the citation in your sources list. Every time if something jumps at you as an, oh, that's interesting, make a note of that in your handy dandy little list that you're going to. When it comes to making your reference list, you can steal bits out of your sources list and put it in your reference list, because your reference list can only have the works you referred to in your assignment. There may be more things in your sources list that you didn't end up using in your assignment. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about referencing. Everyone loves referencing. Yay! Referencing is both the hardest thing and the easiest thing you'll ever have to do in your life. It's one of the easiest things you'll ever have to do in your life because it's basically just pattern recognition. All you have to do is get the details that are in front of you and make sure they're in the right pattern. Done. The hardest thing is that you actually have to recognize the pattern. And believe me, you will fall into several big traps when it comes to doing your referencing. You will skip over the tiny details that you need to pay attention to. There'll be things that your brain will just say, that's fine. It's not fine. That particular style wants you to do it in a particular way, and it didn't do it that way, and you missed it. So one of the things you're going to have to do is find a good guide. So let's head back to our library. Oh, we love the library so much.